that I had a girlfriend that was helping me with childcare. She was staying in the apartment and she got stuck. We had to get a tow truck in there. It's very soggy back there in general. We brought in a bunch of gravel, actually talking to the neighbors about it. We almost asked to borrow their backhoe. They're constantly backfilling, so they didn't get permits for it. And then we said, we're gonna bring in dirt. And he said, don't worry about it. We brought in dirt and filled the hole, telling them about it though, is the irony of this. And since then, it's just made it where it's safe right there. I have a art business and I get in and out of the property. I'm unable to back up the trailer safely when it floods. The road that's long is really tricky for me when my husband's away. And so I pull through that. That's the only time the road's been used. And then recently, since it's now a solid piece, all their delivery trucks go through my property. And so we put up 2 signs since the one neighbor came and attacked my little boy and I. We put up the 2 signs to block off that road. Now no one accesses it.
Can I
Madam
just,
Chair.
in all fairness of everybody that's here to speak tonight, are we going to reopen the public
Yeah.
hearing?
We can, if we have often just let people answer the questions
Okay.
again without doing it. And
Really,
I don't know, that's normally what we do, but I can certainly reopen it if we have to, if others wish to come up and speak too.
Yeah,
Are we going to have
Well,
other
I
people that
think-
wish to come up again? If so, I will reopen it. Okay.
We will never use that road again. Like, we offered to pay money. They
Excuse
said they
me,
didn't
ma'am,
want it.
just 1 minute, because
I
we
would like
are.
a motion right now that we table this until such time that the business license expires.
Well, I don't think we have any other
And then we take it
choice.
back, we would take it back up at this time. But I'm like, Andy, I think that,
We have
you
no
know,
choice.
we have no, I don't think it makes sense for us to deny it with
to
a
even
business
discuss it,
license
yeah.
in effect. But I do think that come March,
We can do it.
when new criteria is put in place, or when the new application word, I would be prepared for. You can see the sense, I think, of this commission,
That's the way I read
that
it.
come March, I would be prepared for a different opinion than what we're giving you tonight.
I don't think we have any other choice right now, because legally, you have the right to operate until March 2024.
So I
And
think-
we can't really discuss anything differently.
So if I may, I've been kind of sitting on this for a minute, is this is not a great situation historically, either side of it, but right now, we can see the confusion on the Airbnb, the short-term rentals, and nobody has figured it out yet. There's absolutely no guidance. So to table this, but also to table any application that comes in until there is clear guidance,
I
until we
agree.
have more than the application that is in play, that Thomas has shared, is a great start, but until we have more definitive that we can take out for each one and look at things fairly, I think that there's such a gray area that we're all struggling with right now. So that would be my addition, a comment of, we really cannot start looking at these conditional use permits for short-term rentals, vacation rentals, whatever they're called, until we have more descriptive, in-depth
I
guidelines.
agree with that.
But
I'll go on.
That's a posture City of Hampton has taken.
I'll go on a little bit further, is that, and I think it's been alluded to, that indeed, I suggest tabling it until March, but then the process, instead of being a short form issued by somebody other than going through the planning commission, comes to the planning commission.
that is going to be, that
And
is the
that's-
process moving forward.
Yeah, and
You're
then
exactly right.
the approval or disapproval of a permit, not through some city person, but through the planning commission,
That is the
is
process
acceptable.
moving forward.
Yes.
That's what, we've been saying since we started having these conversations,
You
right?
can't deny one and approve another, big,
So,
I mean, I
Madam
think it has to.
Chair, if I could make a few suggestions.
Ma'am, if you want, you just have a seat for
Yeah.
a few minutes. If
If it's
ask you,
the-
then we will.
desire of the planning commission to table this application before it expires, I'd recommend you table it until February. Reconsider it in February because their license expires March 1st. If you all, if it's your consensus, one, you need to act on this application in and of itself. I don't think it's appropriate to table it to some time unknown when the guidelines show up or don't show up.
Agreed.
If you don't take action on it in February, it's not going to cancel until it is expired in March. And if this planning commission does not want to take action on short-term rentals or tourist home applications until there is such guidance from the Commonwealth, then the direction needs to be that we take a pause on them generally, just as the city of Hampton is doing. And we can take that to city council, that recommendation from you all for their direction. So I think you have two decisions to make: what to do with this application specifically. If you don't act on it, it's going to expire March 1st. And if you don't want to act on any more short-term rental application, tourist home conditional use permit applications, then that direction, that recommendation can be shared with council for their consideration and their discussion, and then we will take their direction.
I mean, one thing that you said, Thomas, early on, and Commissioner Wells was talking about that it's the home business that appear as this,
It's not there. Right.
So, and that's something that we're going to have to really look at.
And that's how, if, right now, we are operating that when someone desires to operate a short-term rental, a tourist home, that's synonymous with one another. The process is a conditional use permit. We can get the direction from you all, the recommendation from you all, that the city cease consideration thereof until such time as we have guidance from the state. And it may necessitate a further conversation that I don't think is appropriate while we're still discussing this. I can discuss it in communications and correspondence. But I think you need to,
Thomas.
I
Nope.
think you need to
Never
take
mind.
two different actions now on this. One on this application specifically, and then perhaps in your communications and correspondence, a consensus of you all ask us as staff to take your recommendation on how to handle these applications to city council for consideration.
Well, even if we don't have a specified rule, if they come back at end of February or March, whichever is appropriate, we can still make a decision based upon the facts that we have in hand.
Absolutely.
So it's not like we have to do this indefinitely. There is a time that the permit wears out, and then we take on our responsibility to do what we believe is right.
If you're going to take
And the
action
city
on it-
council can overrule us. I
Right.
mean, that's,
If you're,
just a recommendation,
if you're
folks.
going to take action on it, if you are, then I would recommend no later than February, but I would recommend to you all next month. This way, council can consider it in February before it expires.
Chairwoman, if I can just make it known, right now, we are being asked, and whether it's tonight or 2 months from now, we are being asked to make decisions on things that we have no guidance for, we have no history for. We've seen what's happened in this situation where the business license was sent, and then now there's complaints. So I would strongly advise, I would strongly advocate that to have the guidance that we're looking for, so we're not making one-off decisions. Like, we've got to look at this as a whole for the city, and what short-term rentals, vacation home, tourist home, whatever do for our city. So, we're going to have to take this into consideration before their business license is up. But I truly believe that we can't just sit here and say, well, this might be the guidance, or this might be, York County has these zoning ordinances excerpts, but we don't have anything yet. Regardless of what the state does or does not have, we don't have anything as a city. So to make all these decisions moving forward, even on a case-by-case basis, we don't have a litmus of what we're looking at. So I just ask that be taken into
That's kind of
consideration
the
moving
purpose
forward.
of the conditional use permit, though. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what
Or
it's used for.
in the residential areas.
Or in any area.
For the
Any area. We just
Yeah.
approved, one just got approved up here, CUP.
That was in a business district.
It was still a CUP, though, and we just had one over here that's in a business district, but was residential, that we've approved. And because of the nature of where it was located, I think is the reason
That it was in a business district.
that it was in a business district.
That was a
So-
different situation.
Yeah.
And to speak to the reference with York County, they are guidelines to measure something to, so that one of the main thing we like, or that is heard a lot, is complaint-driven type of, is there noise, is there traffic, is there allowed parties, things of that nature. But you're right, there's no way to measure it to. It's very subjective in here, which to me is, and it's unfortunate, mistakes did happen, and I appreciate that, but it's a catch-22 for that's why I was trying to get with you was, why did we start looking at this in the first place? Because that's important to me. And I would say all of us as residents of the city, what would, put yourself in their situation, both of them, and it's unfortunate
Definitely.
across the board.
Yeah, it is. It is certainly. But tonight, we have to decide what action we're going to take on this.
How about we make a motion?
Can I speak to the board for a second?
minute.
I just wanted to tell you that it's actually state code that when an application is heard in a public hearing, you have to actually make a decision within 60 days. So that's what we were talking about. I was just confirming with Andy. So you can table it once for 30 days, but the next time you hear it, you do have to make a decision. So I think that the latest that you can hear this, you can review this application would be in January. And at that time, you will have to make a decision on this application.
The decision can be made based on the expiration of,
Yeah, that's what I was
I
going to
mean, we can come in and nail it down and say upon expiration.
expires.
That would be a decision between that. We just can't push it back until February, and we can't push it back until the expiration of this business license. The most we can push it back is, the decision has to be made within 60 days of tonight.
60 days of
So in
Yes.
January, when we have our meeting, I think what we're saying is, if we make the decision, one way or the other, it is based on the expiration date, because we can't change that, of the business license. It's in effect till that time. It's a strange thing, because we'll be making a decision that can't immediately go into effect. It has to, we can make a decision.
You can give it a
Can we not-
effective date.
Yeah.
Can we put in to
Make
the
a decision.
decision? Yeah. Upon,
Any recommendation to city council that you think is appropriate related to the application?
okay.
Okay, well, I
All right,
think
so
that settles
tonight-
it. Let's do it.
Do we-
City council would then take it up at their meeting in February,
Okay,
which will likely be, I mean, no matter what recommendation you take, whether it be now or January, the only thing, the only difference is if you took it up now, city council would essentially address it in January.
right.
But if you take it up in January, they will then address it at their February meeting, which would be a closer in time frame to the March.
The
renewal.
expiration date.
So
All right, so
table it
tonight, we probably want to, maybe someone would like to make a motion. I think we're in agreement
had one on the table.
to table it.
To table it.
Okay, so.
So the motion would be
For
to
30
table it
days.
for 30 days.
For 30 days.
And that would be, yeah, I think that's kind of the consensus that we have, isn't it?
Okay.
Everybody kind
Yeah, it will be.
of agreement?
You'll table it until your January meeting,
Okay.
Do we know the date of that meeting?
I can find out, give it,
18th.
is it January 18th?
It's the Thursday after Martin Luther King, because we always meet on that Thursday.
Because we've got that, yeah.
It'll be Thursday, January
Got another
18th.
Monday holiday.
January 18th.
Okay. Borrow your pen now, okay.
Oh, sure.
Oh, all right, so we have that motion.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry.
Libya.
Libby,
Libby.
okay.
Thursday,
January
You want to
18th.
make it again, Libby, so you can,
Was there a second? I apologize.
no, there was never a
I'll
second.
second.
I'll go ahead and second that.
Is there an option to have it be 30 days after that?
no, we
No.
can't.
Be accessible.
I don't think we can do it.
I think we understand quite well the situation. What we're dealing with now is the legal paperwork that you presently have and what has come before the board. So it's more of our problem deciding what we need to do.
We're looking at something, kind of the bigger picture as far as what the city needs to do and how they need to address
Yeah.
Airbnbs and all that. It's not, sorry, but your case is kind of over the door to this.
All right, we have a motion on the table.
We have a second as well.
We have a second.
Yes.
So now we have a vote.
Commissioner Geisinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Salick? Aye. I'm sorry. Commissioner Griebel?
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Schott?
Aye.
Chairman Shriver?
Aye.
All right, the CUP has been tabled until January 18th.
What was that date again? January?
January 18th of
18th.
2024.
Okay. Okay. All right, with that, we'll
Next.
move on to the old business. And we have already had on the old business, we have had a public hearings. We don't need to have a public hearing on this one. This was a request for a conditional use permit by Charles A. Counts, owner, and Brianna Russo, applicant for the operation of an automobile repair garage/tow yard at 611 Yorktown Road, tax map parcel 17-01-00-0023, approximately .7021 acres, zoned RS Single Family Residence. Okay, so this is one we probably have some more information coming from Thomas. We
Yes.
get some more definite information.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the Planning Commission, you have seen this application before. You asked me to gather additional information. I did, and revised the conditions accordingly. If you want me to pause at any point, I will. But I think you all are familiar with the application. This is the important part, the additional information. I took this from the revised application that you all have a copy of in your packet. The more clarity on the vehicles to be worked on, passenger vehicles and boat trailers primarily. The days and hours of operation requested Monday to Saturday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. I think that's a little more consistent with some of the conversations you all had in October. There's no restriction on non-mechanic work. The conversations had with the applicant is, when the garage is in use, there's really not room or time to complete other tasks. So we've not restricted their ability to clean the business or complete paperwork or any other non-mechanic work to any days or times. The anticipated shop size is 50 by 100, 4 bays, and the maximum, this was another condition, the max number of inoperable vehicles to be stored on the site at any time given is restricted to 15 inoperable vehicles, so that this does not become or appear that, it's a junkyard. That's not the purpose. It's not the intended use. I've also, in the application, that they mentioned that no towing operations allowed between 5 p.m., 7 a.m. unless for emergency services. I'll talk about that more in just a second. So we've reworked the conditions with the new information considered. Some carried over, one being that the plan for the site shall only be approved once all the requirements of the code are satisfied. The hours of operation for the repair shop are to be from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Saturday. No restriction on non-mechanic work days or hours. Non-mechanic work being understood as cleaning, paperwork, etc. Repair work shall be performed within the building only. Inoperable vehicles shall be stored inside of or in the rear of the building and screened from public view, and at no such time shall more than 15 inoperable vehicles be stored on site at any given time. Towing operations shall not be performed between 5 p.m. and 7 a.m. unless for emergency services. I'll talk about that in just a second. Screening shall be maintained along each property line as required in City Code Section 10-8 of the B2 District Regulations. That's the screening language you use for storage yards. You're all very familiar with it. Signage is to be permitted in accordance with Appendix D, signs of the code, and then our 3 carryover conditions that speak to local, state, federal licenses, 2-year expiration, and that City Council reserves to review and amend the conditions of the permit as they see fit. The towing operation on the site was a major topic of conversation at last month's meeting. The condition reads that none shall operate between 5 p.m. and 7 a.m. unless for emergency services. The applicant, how they intend to operate the towing component of their business in those hours is that they will have, and he will correct me if I'm wrong, wreckers on site. When he is dispatched for police or fire, he will drive his personal vehicle to the site, hop in the wrecker, tow the vehicle to an off-site lot, bring the wrecker back, park the wrecker, get back in his car, and leave the site. So I've given you the additional information that I required. We've amended the conditions as such. If you have questions of me, I'm happy to answer them.
Thomas, what you just stated, is that in here? Did I overlook that, perhaps, how that emergency towing service is going to work? Because I think there was concern about the property owner across the street about towing taking place, all hours of the
Sure.
morning. And so what guarantees do we have that he's going to do what you said?
Well, the condition, it does say towing operations shall not be performed between 5 p.m. and 7 a.m. unless for emergency services.
But he could theoretically have 2 or 3 emergency services in an evening, after those times. And you're saying he's going to drive his truck there, get in the wrecker, and will tow the vehicle off-site, not coming back to the property, is what I understood you just
That's
saying.
what, yes.
But that doesn't say that here.
If you want to expand upon the condition, we certainly can.
Also concerned about the left turns there. Any way that signage or something could be added there that no left turns? I don't see how you could make a left turn out of there.
You mean,
With a
you
segment.
mean,
Depends on his site, how
You
he,
mean a right turn?
you mean a right turn
Yeah.
towards
Right
the
turn, I'm
site.
sorry. I'm looking at it on the paper left.
depends
A
on
right
his site
turn.
plan.
I'm sure,
A right
She's
turn.
changing the,
You could do that, but I think that would be dangerous. We talked about that last time, particularly with, turning
But-
out of there at certain times
Right.
in the morning.
Right.
Is it any
The
way?
site plan will probably take care of that, I would imagine.
we will
I
complete
hope
site
so.
plan review.
Yeah.
And
'Cause that would
I
be dangerous.
think if there is anything that warrants concern, the engineer, who is extremely more qualified to opine on that, will make recommendations if he sees fit, and if necessary and permissible, will ask for any signage that the VDOT manual would require. So he'll look at that in a
Now,
site
will this
plan.
require a full site plan?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, this will be submitted as a full site
Will
plan.
be addressed in that, okay, so.
Yes, a land disturbance permit's going to be required for it. Yeah.
The whole development, they will submit to us a development plan for this parcel, and we'll ask for everything we would ordinarily need to see. We'll ask that they show the screening, required in the CUP and so forth.
Thomas, number one, thank you to both you and the applicant for going back and coming up with some amended conditions. One of the areas that still is a concern to me, and I realize that non-mechanic work days are hours. We all, if you want to come in early to work or do paperwork, but when I read that there is no restriction on non-mechanic work days or hours, you could, in theory, come in at 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. after you've had a wrecker, an emergency call, and decide, we're going to turn all the lights on, and we are going to clean this building, do paperwork, whatever, which in theory, some of that is, I understand, but what we're considering here is a residential area abutted to rural residential land. And to me, that there is no restriction on non-mechanic work days or hours concerns me. And I can tell you, since last planning commission meeting, I have studied the application, I have thought about this application, you and I have met about this application, and that is still a concern that I have.
I think if you're soliciting a response from me, if not, I'll keep my comments. But yes, you accurately described the property. It's rural residential on the York County side.
Right, but
It's residential on
in
the city
Poquoson.
side as
Right.
well. I think it is important to note that the adjacent Poquoson property owners sent letters that they took no issue, no umbrage with the application. And, the applicant has expressed they will keep the natural screening that exists. I don't anticipate spillover lighting would be an issue. We will ask for a lighting plan in the development plan, and we will ensure on the development plan submitted by a professional surveyor or engineer that there be no spillover lighting on the portions of the property that abut residentially zoned property.
Also, the one person who really spoke out against it is across the street from it. I know that the driveway, the Hopkins, Billy Hopkins, they're at the very back, and I'm not sure that they're even adjacent to this property. Now, I know the Clarks are.
Yes.
And Billy's property may run at some point adjacent to it, but his house is way in the back.
His house
And
is.
his son's house is way in the back.
He has an adjacent parcel
One
to
parcel.
this.
But it doesn't
Yes,
affect
ma'am.
his house where he lives.
No, ma'am.
And so you've got a house across the street, directly across the street, who spoke against it. And I think that because it is a residential neighborhood, and I know the prior use, and I have no problem with that, it's just that I think the residential characteristics need to be maintained so that there is no adverse effect of any kind on the residential properties that are surrounding it. And that includes water runoff, that includes light spillage, anything that could adversely affect a residential property, because it is a residential neighborhood.
I understand. And
Please, yeah.
like I said, we will, through the development plan, ask that a lighting plan be submitted with it, and that there's no spillover lighting to the residences, either the Clarks, as you mentioned, direct adjacents, or the folks across the street.
I have a question, is that in this residential area, I've seen that they don't have city water, they actually have wells. And one of the things that I noticed even when I was working, when they clean parts and the chemicals that are used in it, they have to be completely contained, and how are they going to be, you can't dump it, in the land. I'd be kind of interested in knowing how you're going to handle cleaning liquids for parts and stuff.
I would say that I'm pretty certain that Newport News Waterworks does service this portion of the city and the county.
Okay, let me tell you, when I was with IBM, we dumped the ethylene glycol stuff into the ground, and it saturated everybody's well within about 4 to 5 miles. So all I'm saying is that there should be some type of containment of any cleaning liquids that might affect groundwater for anybody that might be on well.
That's a point well taken. I don't think the property, if it is on well, I'm sure they have intentions for Newport News Waterworks connection. As far as the chemical containment that you reference, obviously that guidance is set by authorities much larger than ours. And at any time, and Laura can expand or correct me if I'm wrong, anytime the city's made aware of a chemical spill, it may be paint someone's pouring in a ditch or a larger spill, the necessary authorities are notified, the fire department's dispatched, Laura's often asked to assist, and if necessary, VDM assist in the cleanup, and so on and so forth. But as far as the containment of chemicals and everything to do with this operation, that their requirements from state and federal regulations are still, we have a condition that says all local, state, and federal regulations, licenses, blah, 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 shall be obtained. So they won't be able to pour 55
Should be
gallons of
familiar with
diesel in the
that.
side yard.
They
They
should
should
be
be
familiar.
extremely familiar.
They have a,
Correct.
already have a
Correct.
garage that is adjacent to homes.
Correct.
So they should be very familiar with it. The noise issue sometimes is something that I've thought about, though, with what they're doing. Number 10, the city council reserves the right to review and amend the conditions of this permit as they see fit. So in other words, if there was a lot of complaint at some point in time, adjacent property owners about noise or anything, I
and-
imagine that it would be some repercussion or some review,
And
some
we do have
review, I guess. of
And we
that.
have a noise ordinance, as you well know.
We have a noise ordinance, so that should be, it sounds like you've got it covered.
Hey, Thomas, if I can summarize a couple different things that I've been hearing. So number one, there's a like business a couple parcels down in York County, correct? Number two, there's a historical precedent that there was a garage on this property from the 70-ish to the early 2000s. Number three, this business would follow their development plan, would be approved with light mitigating properties that would minimize any disturbance of those around them, correct?
We will ensure that a
And-
lighting plan is supplied with the development plan.
And everything else will be addressed, whether it's pulling in from traffic or out from traffic, just like everybody else on that street. It's a very, very busy road, no matter who you are, where you are on that road, but that will be addressed by VDOT if there need to be certain circumstances or
It'll be
whatever.
addressed by our engineer
Our
in our
engineer.
review.
Okay, so all these concerns are covered in the processes moving forward with the city.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, any more questions?
I was just going to ask out of curiosity, Tom brought up an important, well, I think an important question. How are the chemicals handled right now that you use for cleaning?
Come to the podium
Is that
too,
something you could speak to?
and tell us.
I mean, I think that's a valid question.
So your waste oil either goes into a waste oil burner, which heats the shop up, or it goes into a drum that we pay to have pumped out, along with your coolant that goes into a drum just like other shops, we pay to have that disposed of by a special company. The chemicals, it's actually a bath. It's in a tank. That gets cleaned out. When that goes bad, a company comes out and picks that up. Everything is done through the rules that they're supposed to be done at. Nothing gets dumped down drains or dumped here or dumped there. Now, back in the day, it might have been like that, but not at this place, I can promise you that.
Because you could get in big trouble.
Yeah, actually, they're coming tomorrow. If you want to come to my shop tomorrow, they're coming to pump oil out tomorrow. You can come look at that too if you want any antifreeze.
I figured you were pretty familiar with that.
I think if we could add that comment in that you made regarding towing, you know, where he would pull the tow truck out at night, but he wouldn't be towing him back and forth to the shop all hours of the night.
Can I say something about that?
Sure.
All right, so we have little trucks and we have big trucks. We have a rollback and a medium duty truck. The rollback and the medium duty are kind of like a specialty kind of truck. Those don't get used all the time. But the other night we had a boat that somebody ran into a telephone pole. The boat came up, went over top of the truck and destroyed a bunch of stuff. We had to bring bigger trucks out to recover this stuff. So those trucks are the ones that actually sit, and you go by my shop right now, they're both sitting right there. They don't get used all the time. Those are the ones that, if we have to go get them, those are the ones that would be getting picked up from there to go on the calls, and they go right back park back over there. So those trucks, like I said, they're not used every day. We have little trucks that are used 99% of the time. Those are just kind of specialty trucks. And they're bigger trucks, so it's
I'm just
harder.
saying, if you get calls from the state police, you know, throughout the night, you know, to come tow a vehicle in, I mean, theoretically, that could go on all night long, because you're on call all night.
Yeah, but the chances of us having to use one of those trucks is very slim. I can probably pick up my tow books and show you how many times those trucks in 1 month have been used for a police call. It's
But
slim.
any tow truck, I mean, I'm thinking
Yeah,
about
but those-
any activity
but you know,
all night long, going
My
on
other
all night
trucks
long.
don't stay there. My other trucks would stay at this shop or wherever the people are staying, my drivers are staying at. So when they get the call, they can leave and come back. So it's not like every single night we get a call and we have to leave. And personally, I mean, let's say we had to do that. What if somebody's family member was upside down in the ditch and they called us in the middle of the night to come rescue them? And that's what we have to do. Nobody sees that kind of stuff. So the quicker we
no, I
can get
get
there,
it.
the better it is for everybody else. And when the roads, like Poquoson Avenue gets blocked off by the boat in the road and people down the road can't get back up the road until we get there and get it all cleaned up, so the faster we can get there, we're the ones who do all that. Not the fire department, not the
I
police
know.
department. We're the ones that clean it all up
No,
and open the roads back
I think
up.
there's a limit to number of cars they can have in there, in the backyard.
I was just thinking about if I was a neighbor across the street and tow trucks, you know, going in and out all night long.
But what's the
that's
difference?
not
If that
the
road's
intent.
such a busy road,
know that's
what's the
not the
difference between a tow
intent.
truck going in or cars going up and down that road all day long? You know, that's something to think about too. And then the 15 inoperable vehicles, that's not cars that we towed in that were in accidents. Parts are hard to find right now. So if you bring your car to us and needs a motor, and they tell us it's a month out before you can get a motor, now that car's gonna be sitting till a motor comes in and put the motor in it. That's why it's inoperable. It's not the cars that we tow in from being police calls or anything like that.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. All right, so are we prepared to make a motion on this one?
Does anyone else have a question or want to make a comment?
I don't know, it seemed like.
I would like
Would
the
you like
comment
to-
added.
I'm sorry, we had already had the public hearing,
Oh,
so.
have we already?
Yeah, you can't speak.
Oh, I'm
We already
sorry.
had that, so that's why I was getting ready to move on.
Oh, my apologies.
That's okay, that's okay. Well, he's the one that's requesting it, so if we had a question of him, it's a little bit different. We had a public hearing on it last time, so it's technically not the right thing to do to reopen it, really. Do we have a motion on this one? Someone prepared to make it?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for the garage based upon all the recommendations and conditions and the operating hours, et cetera.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, we'll take a vote.
Commissioner Geisinger.
Aye.
Commissioner Salek. Commissioner Kriebel.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Schott.
No.
Chairman Shriver.
Aye.
The recommendation passes.
It is a recommendation you'll be taking it to the city council, and they'll make the final decision. And thanks staff for the additional information that we requested. We appreciate it. It was helpful. Okay, so with that, our agenda is complete, except for communications and correspondence from staff. Thomas and
Sure.
Wally, y'all have anything you need to let us know
We've
about?
A couple,
we got some goodies to give you.
a couple
Let's hear it.
things. I'll speak about that first very briefly. You'll remember the end of last year, we brought a CCIP to you all. We hadn't done it in a couple of years, but we did do one last year, and it's back again. I'm going to distribute a hard copy of the FY 25 to 29 CCIP, recommended CCIP to you all tonight before you leave. You have some time to look at it the next few weeks. We plan on bringing the public hearing to you in January. So we'll have a public hearing on that January 18th. And you all, of course, the public hearing for the CUP night was closed, but you will make that consideration that evening as well. So stick around just a second when we adjourn so I can get you a copy. I would encourage you, if there is a consensus from the Planning Commission, from your conversation tonight, on some recommendation that you all like us to take for council, to council, for them to provide us, to then provide us with direction on how to permit short-term rentals, and by permit, I mean the process. I would ask for you to do it tonight, and then we can start those conversations with the manager's office and, start mapping out when we'll have that conversation with council and the questions that we need answers to.
Right now, it's like going in a dark closet and looking for a black coat and hat. Because we don't have anything really to go by. We're just kind of trying to formulate what is the best for
Right.
the surrounding neighbors.
Well,
Right.
We
And
I think
need
that's the
something.
biggest
That's
part
the-
right there.
that's
That's
the-
why I keep going back to what Thomas said about a
I mean,
home
we've
business.
got,
Right.
as Thomas referenced earlier today, we do have a form that he's put together that does have some,
Guidance.
some basic conditions and guidance on it. The issue is, by the time, if we don't know ultimately what the state's going to decide. In other words, can we even get into the business of regulating the number of rooms or driveways or things like that? Right now, there is no such prohibition, so that might be an argument for, taking action on it now. I don't know, but it is a sticky situation, and we all kind of waiting on the state to rule on it. And having an outright a freezing on it might be the way to go. I don't know,
Or
but
if we disagree with how the state looks at it.
well, if the state comes down on one side or the other, I think we have to go along with
Yeah.
that.
well,
I just hate to see a situation come about like we had tonight.
Exactly.
and, it's not, I can.
Well, I think the road dispute probably didn't help.
The what?
The road
Right.
dispute probably didn't help that
It
situation.
didn't, but it's still,
Well, we're refining the current process in this building as best we can now.
Yes.
Thomas and Wally, if I can, and this is just something to look into, I would be interested to know if there are any legal implications for the city, for the council, commissioners. We have that application that has guidelines on it, but it's not code, it's not compliant, there's nothing to back it up. So
Oh.
I guess my question would
Look.
be, if someone
Well-
comes and challenges that, that's what we're going off of right
We
now?
are not, there's nothing in that draft application, and that is an application for a short-term rental CUP.
Yes.
It's not something we're going to approve administratively.
Right.
And there's nothing in that draft application as it exists that's in conflict with the current state code. It is much more informational in nature than it is, here's the city guidance, go forth. It's asking for address, it's asking for whether it's a whole home rental or a partial, asking if they're going to be on site, is it operating as a short-term rental, or is it operating more like it's informational in
Right.
nature. Does it have some guidance? Yes, like our parking requirement.
It's a complete application, and we require that in the proposed new code. We're not only defining it, but we've got a section in Article 1 that speaks to, putting in a city-approved application and addressing those things that are in there. Now, the state may take that away from us,
Yeah.
and if they do, they do.
Wait, so the city new code that's coming?
The one that's coming, yes.
Right.
The one that we're working on. Right now, unfortunately, it's not addressed at all.
Everything you all have been working on with us, the language is there for the definition, and that references the application, and at such time, if such time occurs, that the state code, there's something in our application or our process that the state code doesn't allow, we'll stop.
Right.
That's the reason we refer to that form, because we know full well that form may change in its substance.
Why don't you
But,
send us the form so we can see ourselves,
Sure, I can share.
just a copy of it, and the
The
other thing,
application, we considered that, did we not?
I did, some months ago, I shared it with you all, and we looked at it, and some comments were made, because there was one, I remember, a clarification on, the partial home, and there was a few
Okay.
editory, I can send you another copy of
would
it.
you please?
Sure. I can-
Well, it's a slippery slope.
Well, and,
I
the
said it's a slippery
localities
slope.
around us are finding that out, because it's,
Well, the first thing is that, at least now, it's being used as a conditional use permit now versus an administrative thing. So
Correct.
You've got that first part done. Now, the other one is us to be able to act on something now when it comes before this board.
Right. Well, and if you all, we've strayed a bit, but it's productive. Before you leave, do someone make a recommendation, and just by consensus, give us that direction.
Can we make a
We need to
recommendation?
vote on that, or?
Just a consensus, a verbal consensus.
We all have a consensus that this is what we want Thomas and Wally to convey to city council.
Yeah.
That we would like to have something
What,
that we can go by.
right, okay.
When we make a recommendation, just like we've done tonight, are you the one that presents it to the council, what our
Yes.
recommendation was, or do you give any background
I
as
see
to
through,
why?
yes, the whole CUP process I administer, from the application to the presentation to council. And
The
quite
comments of the
frankly,
commission?
I revise a memo, I create a new memo to city council that has planning commission recommendation and the information in it. And of course, I include in my presentation what your recommendation was.
I know, I just think it's important that the council, when they particularly disagree with what the commission's recommendation is.
The planning commission's recommendation is always shared with city council.
And the reasoning behind
Yes.
their recommendation.
Yes, like my storage, we talked about, it was the mass that was, the
Right.
issues you all presented.
So they got all that
Correct.
information?
Yes, ma'am.
From you, okay.
That's all I've
Is
got.
that it?
Just so I'm clear, are you wanting us to convey that you want to put a moratorium on these, or are you conveying that you want some standards that city council
I think
approves?
standards, I'm not,
Or a moratorium, a lot of,
Well, moratorium was mentioned earlier, that's
a
why.
lot
Okay, that
of
would-
jurisdictions have chosen to put a moratorium.
Well,
Till the state
Until
comes
the state
through.
comes out
Is
with
that what-
guidelines.
it may be, I think, my personal, I could see where we codify, that these are, CUPs for these are to be considered only in commercial districts. Yeah, but those are the discussions that can be had, and, if that's the direction it goes, fine, if not, but we can seek that
I
clarification.
have no problem with that.
We can present that to the council. I
Right.
understand that they will formulate whether they want to put they'll vote on whether they want to put a moratorium or whether they want to do guidelines.
Right. And if they want to direct it to certain
Separate.
zoning districts, we'll just put it as prohibited use in the districts we don't want.
How is that
Because
going
we'll
to-
have to specifically,
We want something
specify.
from them, one way or the other,
How
to
is this
to
going?
show us what to do, how to go, and particularly in the business district. We kind of all, I guess, would prefer the business district rather than in residences.
How would you-
Residential.
One thing to think of is how you might look at bed and breakfasts as opposed to Airbnbs.
That's another thought.
One thing
We have had one.
my
now.
concern is, I know that we have numerous Airbnbs being operated in the city right now in residential districts.
Yeah, oh, I know.
And how are they going to be affected, and is that something that the city will take
Well, right
an
now, there's
aggressive?
nothing in the zoning ordinance that allows them by right.
Pardon?
There's nothing in the zoning ordinance that allows them by right.
That's what I'm saying. So is the city going to actively pursue these properties that are
Well, we are
being-
complaint driven, as Thomas
Only
brought, but if we
complaint-driven
get a
still.
complaint, we'll check it out.
Okay, but short of that, you're not going to Airbnb and see what's available in the city
No,
because,
We're not riding down the road looking for them.
Okay.
But I mean, the
I-
challenge with that is.
Some
it puts
places
us
are.
in such a.
some
a
places
spot
are
of
actually
picking and
going in.
choosing.
Some
And I
places,
think that's what we want to get away from. We don't want to be in a spot where we're picking and choosing. Yeah, it's okay in this neighborhood, but it's not okay in this
that's right.
neighborhood.
I agree.
I mean, I think it needs to be set to where in the business district, yeah, it's one thing. Residential
is-
area, it affects so many more people than it does if it's isolated in the business.
Absolutely.
Well, and I
it just-
think that's the challenge with tonight is the business district is a whole nother thing. It's, when it's tonight, the history of it all, but it's a residential area, and when we start down the path and looking at one, we're setting a precedent. So without having guidance, more information, the ability to have a complete picture, I think we have to differentiate that the residential tourist home or whatnot is what we really need guidance, information, how we're moving forward, not just,
And I know with
And also Village
Airbnbs,
Commercial.
they look at who's renting
got
the
an air
place,
issue
they
and
don't
they-
look at who you're bringing with you. So,
It's true. Airbnb came out with a new set of standards. My daughter in San Diego had an Airbnb, and now she's having to shut down because of new rules and regulations. And, she's biting the bullet. I mean, it was nice to have that extra income, but, you can't go against, if you're going to be on Airbnb, you have to comply with them.
Every state.
Oh, yeah.
And locality is wrestling with this.
It's the same thing with the hired cars with, you get a Lyft or something like that, and you got a very strong taxi people, they're banning that in a lot of cities because it's a easy way to make someone with their car to make money, but you've also putting out taxis. So it's something that, it's in that order. I'm not saying we have to start worrying about taxis.
I think if you convey regarding business, that we need to consider the Village Commercial and how it's affected in there as well.
We'll look at it. Our intention and, our job, quite frankly, is that, when these issues rise, we don't look at it as specific. We look at it, well, how are we going to handle this in each of our zoning districts? Are we going to permit them by CUP everywhere? Or if not, in which zoning districts? And if not in all, in which zoning districts do we want to prohibit them specifically? So
Right.
we
And would have to-
will get the answers to those questions.
The council may want to have a work session on it and come up and actually some of these things out.
Right.
Whether they want it in residential or business. Our feelings are kind of, what they are, and I think we've expressed them, but, ultimately, they're the ones that have to make the decision. And let us know what they are, so we'll know.
Even if we pass
Act on it
something,
fairly.
the people are going to have to go before the city council, and they're going to have to figure out, we're not the final approval on this. We can make a
Well,
recommendation.
and I do, want to point out that through our conversation with the manager soon, and obviously his subsequent conversations with the mayor, they may want you all to have a work session and discuss and bring some recommendations to them first on this. So, I'm just wanting to make the point that that's a possibility, and if that's the guidance first, we'll do it.
We'd certainly be open to it.
We'll do it.
We would be open to it, and that may be the best way to approach it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so is that it, Wally? Anything else for us?
That's all I got.
Okay, all right, so what we'll do is we'll go down the table here and.
No, I'm good.
I'm good.
Heather?
Good. Ollie?
I do have
You
one
got
other
something?
thing. Yeah.
Okay.
About the CCIP that Thomas handled.
Okay, thank you.
We can have a work session if one is needed before the public hearing on January 18th. I think that's something that the
What do
planning
y'all-
commission needs to sort of
Do y'all
decide
want a work
on.
session?
That's not a bad
Well, we
idea to
could have
kind of
one.
get our thoughts. I don't.
Before on the 18th, which y'all, work session on this, Libby. On the
January 18th.
Yeah, before we go. That might not be a bad idea. Pretty good, everybody on board with that? All right, let's do it. You want to do 6 o'clock, 6:30? That'd be enough, wouldn't it? 6:30?
January 18th?
It's not a huge document.
It's not a new document, exactly. So let's do 6:30, and we should be able to go over it and kind of familiarize ourselves with it again. Okay, and lastly, this is our last meeting of the year, so of course, we wish everyone a Merry Christmas and hope next year will be a very happy new year for everybody and for the world in general.
And one last thing, y'all, speaking of the holiday, please join us Friday night, 6 o'clock, for the Frosty Festival and the tree lighting ceremony. Right out front, 6 p.m. We'll have a lot of snowmen out there, so
Okay, that sounds fun.
Friday night?
Friday night, 6 o'clock.
Okay, all right, well, thank you all. It was a good meeting.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, y'all.
Yeah, everybody have a good one.
Yes,
Nice, Andy. Have a good Christmas.